Hey coders, welcome back to the Creating an App full walkthrough. We last left off with our basic stackNavigator wired up to do some background coloring on the header here, display an all blog screen, and if we had a title, it should display it in white theoretically, but we actually don't know right now. So we're going to be customizing this a little bit further and showing that our stackNavigator is indeed correctly wired up. We're going to have a second screen we can actually navigate to by the end of this video. So right now we're going to jump right back on in, and I'm going to keep this easy. Let's go ahead and copy literally the entirety of our allblogs.tsx. I'm going to make a new file, or a new screen. I'm going to call it our single blog. This will be displaying our single blog once we finally get there, if that wasn't obvious. I'm going to paste and save the code. I'm going to go ahead and change the name to single blog as our component name. I'm also going to add something new here that we're also going to have to go back to our all blogs and add. We're going to be adding a new static property in this component that will allow us to override any styling from here and also allow us to write a custom name for this header. So I'm going to import something from our React Navigation library. React Navigation, right? And it is going to be, let's see, it was navigation screen options, I'm pretty sure. Let's find out. Navigation, if I can type navigation screen options. There we go. So that's the type we need to import here for our options, and it can either be a function or an object as a static property. So I'm going to make an object myself. So we're going to have a static navigation options, and we're going to type it with our navigation screen options, and we're going to give it an object value, and it's going to have at minimum a header title as the property you want. And header title takes a string as its value, and we can call this our single blog screen. I'm going to save this file. I'm also going to go ahead and, while I'm doing this, copy this over to my all blogs component, as well as the import statement from React Navigation to our all blogs component. That way we can actually safely type this guy in both files. And while I'm here, I'm going to change this to say blogs plural, since that's what the screen's purpose is supposed to be. Now, we have an allblogs.tsx and a single blog.tsx that are pretty much exactly the same thing. They don't do anything unique other than show us some text so we have a visual indicator if we're actually on the correct screen or not, right? That way we can tell if our stack navigation is working. So in order to utilize it, just like before, I'm going to import the screen from this directory /screens/single blog, or blocks, evidently since I typoed it. And as always, if you guys noticed it and are screaming in the video, there you go. Nice, you found it. Anyway, we're going to do single blog and do the same ES6 syntax, where if the colon or the key and the property are the same, we can just shorthand it down to single blog instead of single blog : single blog. And as a test, I'm going to make sure this file is saved. My files are all in place. Refresh my sim. Nothing changed except for we now had this white tinted blogs header. Nice. So we can set some generic styling and a generic header across our application from our app navigator, where we create the stack nav, and we have the option to do a static property on each component or screen navigated to and override those values with other things. Maybe you want your header to change to a slightly different color of purple or whatever when you navigate to a certain screen, like a user profile screen or the single blog screen or things like that. As another test, I'm going to also hard code single blog as our initial route name to test that screen itself. I've saved the file, and refreshing my simulator indeed results with the single blog screen. Nice! That way we know that screen is ready to go. It has a custom header, it's single blog, there's no errors, we're ready. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to all blogs as my home screen, and we're going to go back to the all blogs screen here component, the screen component, and we're going to be adding two things. I'm going to be adding a React Native button component along with the alert component that will allow us to generate an alert on both iOS and Android devices dynamically. So I want to add this button underneath the text element. So button, and what's unique about buttons in React Native compared to what you're used to doing in browser-based component buttons is that the button is a self-closing element. It doesn't take any child text like a normal button would. It takes it in a title property on the button itself that's a string value. And we're going to say go to single blog is what the button is going to say. And there's one more thing that a button is probably going to require, and if you guys recall from React, regular React, you would do something called an on-click if a user has clicked on a button. Well, you don't really click in a mobile app, do you? So what would be the equivalent? Well, you typically press the string. Press? Indeed, it's the on-press handler. On-press. And that is just like you would use an on-click handler. So you would typically maybe console log if you were curious, but I like doing a basic little alert here. So we're going to use our alert component, which has an alert property that is going to take more than one. It takes one object at minimum, but can receive several. So if you really want to customize your alert, you can do so with a configuration object. But at minimum, you have to give it at least some text to display in the alert. And we're going to say it worked. Right, that's a nice positive message giving us an indication of, hey, does this button show up? Does it have this text? And if I click on it or press it, does it actually generate an alert that says this? And then we'll start worrying about, can we make it navigate somewhere? We are going to save this file, refresh our simulator. It should go back to the all blog screen with a button. And with our test here, click on it. Boom, we got it. We got our alert working. Therefore, the button is ready to go. And this is where we're going to have to get a little bit fancy. So instead of this alert, we're going to be doing something else, and we're going to be using a prop. Remember, our app container will give each screen navigated to a set of props where we can do some like parameters, and we can have a function that can navigate us somewhere as a prop, and that's being provided to us by our stack nav. And it's only available until you learn otherwise on the screens we're navigating to. So we're going to have to, first off, type it, and otherwise TypeScript's going to be yelling at us that it doesn't know what it is. And I believe it was navigation screen prop, not config props. Navigation screen props is the one you want to import. And we have to make sure our props generic extends that. Navigation screen props, there we go. So if I delete this alert now, we are going to change this to this.props.navigate, or navigation, which is the property provided to us by our stackNavigator, and the navigation object has a method on it called .navigate. And .navigate is a function that takes at minimum a string argument, as always, and this string argument is going to be the name of any screen we want to navigate to with this button. And I want to, guess what? Navigate to the single blog screen. I'm going to remove this old alert import from the top of my code here. I'm going to save the file, and we are going to hold our collective breaths, refresh the page, and check it out. It worked. We navigated over to the single blog screen. That is awesome. The header is customized. We have the text correct. So if this actually had a single blog, it can actually show it to us. And check this out. We have this handy dandy back button auto-coded for us. We don't got to do anything. The navigator provides it for us, so we can always backtrace to exactly where we were. And this button should actually keep on persisting. So if I navigated down 4 more components, if I hit the back button 4 times, we should be back at the home screen, or back here rather, right? That's awesome. That makes our lives as coders so much easier. I'm going to leave this video here to make sure you guys can play around with your stack navs a little bit. And in the next video, we're actually going to go a little bit faster and do some of the classic logic with our component lifecycles, getting some information and displaying it on the screen using some of maybe the React Native Elements library. So see y'all then.